and welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to be reviewing a book that I thought I reviewed like a month ago. Like I was supposed to put it up a month ago, but I didn't. So sorry about that, but I'm here, better late than never. So this is me reviewing the latest Stephen King novel. It is called Billy Summers and it released on I think August 16th in India, and there was huge hype about it, and I too was hyped because usually I'm not a Stephen King reader because he mostly writes a lot of like books in the horror genre, and I am a huge scaredy cat and I stay away from that as much as I can. But this one is a thriller and I love thrillers, so I decided to pick it up and read it, and then I had thoughts, so I thought that I would do like a dedicated review for this book, and that's what I am here to do now after many weeks of me reading it. So you know, better late than never, as I have said. But yeah, what I thought I would do in this video is not only tell you about my thoughts about this book, but do it in a more systematic way, because if you have been following my channel, you know that there are certain criteria that I like in a thriller or a mystery novel, which are these 5, which you will see here on the screen, which are plot, writing, I'm trying to remember. Plot, writing, characterization, suspense, and pacing. Yes. Yeah. Yes. I remembered them all. My own criteria. These are the things that I think are the most important to a thriller mystery book, and without them, like, it just kind of fizzles out. So what I do is I look at a book, and while I'm reading it, I'm thinking of all of these 5 criteria, and then I rank them on a scale of 1 to 10, and I'm here to talk to you about this book based on that criteria. Now, I am more than happy to discuss this book with you, but if it is going to be a little spoiler filled, then do put the like warning down in the comments and say spoiler filled discussion or comment, and then write down whatever you have to say, because let's just be mindful of all the people who do not want to be spoiled, because there are things that you can be spoiled for in this book. So yes, this is going to be a spoiler-free review. It's going to be tough because like I literally cannot talk about like half of the book because of that, but I will be as vague as possible, but like tell you how I feel. So Billy Summers is about Billy Summers, who is an ex-marine but now a hired killer. He is a hitman, and he wants to get out of the business, but one person who he has been working with for a long period of time approaches him and says that, hey, I have this one huge job which will give you a lot of money, just do this and then we'll be done, and he reluctantly, against his better judgment, decides to go ahead with it, and then, as the book itself says, Billy becomes convinced that something about this job is wrong. He doesn't know just how wrong or about the woman who will help him set things right. So yeah, so that's basically what happens. So the woman is the spoiler bit, which I can't quite get into, but that's essentially what this book is about. So in the first half of the book, we see him as this person who is actually quite smart. He is a very intelligent man. He likes to read, etc. But he has made like this facade of him being actually quite dumb to like all the people who hire him. So like they think that he reads like Archie comics, etc. But he is actually reading some really like philosophical books and stuff like that, and he thinks that this just works in his favor. So that's just the facade that he has. So months before he actually has to take the hit, Billy is sent undercover to the place from which he has to take the hit, and his cover is that he's a writer. So he is given a house, and he has given an office space from which he has to take the hit, and he has to basically get himself situated with the area, figure out the nooks and crannies, how he's supposed to go about the job, etc. And also get to know the people, try to figure out how he's gonna like exit. So that's what he does, but also because he has a lot of free time, and he's supposed to be a writer, and to be writing, he decides to actually write, and he decides to write his own story. And for me personally, I thought that that was like one of the most compelling parts of this book, because Billy Summers as a person has gone through a lot, from his childhood to him being in the Marines to just generally becoming a hitman, etc. And you got to see that in the pages. And I think maybe I am just a sucker for like a book within a book, but I really liked this part and thought that it was the most compelling aspect of it. But yeah, as I said, the day comes that he carries out the hit, but then things go very wrong, and then he's trying to like basically just cover up, and then set things right. And I can't get too much into what happens there because that is all very like spoilery. So let's just get into my thoughts about the book based on my criteria. So the first one is plot, and I kind of like the idea of a hired gunman going about trying to kill all these bad guys, and then things go wrong, and then he's trying to like fix everything on the fly. I like that idea, though it is a little cliche as well. I did expect that Stephen King would take that idea and kind of make it his own, but he did it to an extent, but also not quite. The only reason why I say this is because there were a lot of moments in this book that I felt were honestly maybe just a little Bollywoody. Think like Soldier, like early like 90s movies, right? For example, like this isn't a spoiler per se, but there's this one scene where he's a writer and like a regular guy, that's his cover, but then he becomes attached to the family that lives next to him, and they go to this fair, and this kid wants a stuffed toy. So of course he's like, fuck it, like these people are not supposed to know that I can shoot really well, but I shoot really well to get this kid this stuffed toy. And I'm like, you almost blew your cover. Like, people were suspicious. Like, come on. Like, but that sort of thing, like, it happens in like Hollywood, Bollywood movies. And I was like, oh, that's a little cliche, but it's fine. Also, the second part was nice, though I don't know if like people would react in that sort of way. And I don't know. It was an alright-ish second act for me. So in total, I give this a 6.5 on 10 with regards to plot. Number 2 is characters and characterizations, and for that I really like the characters. I think that Stephen King does a great job in like sketching out these characters, telling us who they are, where they came from, what their motivations are, and just having you kind of root for them or like hating them through the process. And yeah, I just really liked them, though like there were certain things where I was just like, I don't know if a person would react to this trauma in this sort of way, but I had to keep reminding myself that not everyone registers trauma the same sort of way, etc, etc. Not everyone would react how you would react. Just like keep reminding that in my brain. But yeah, that overall I really liked it. I thought the characters were one of the best part of this book, and I give the characterization aspect of this book 8 out of 10. The next bit is writing, and for writing, I mean, Stephen King's been doing this for a while, so obviously his writing was great. I really enjoyed it. He really does do a great job in describing the place and giving you a sense and time of the era. I especially really liked the book within the book, that is the book that Billy Summers was writing. He did this thing where like the beginning was written in a different way and then it kind of moved on to a different sort of thing, and I would have loved to like just see that book in itself. That would have been like a great book to read. So I really enjoyed that part. Though I do have to say that if you are triggered by sexual assault, he really described it very brutally in this book. So like, just be aware of that. I don't think that he did a bad job with it. I think he was like sensitive enough, though it was very like blatant. So yeah, just kind of be aware of that. Also, of course, Stephen King, being Stephen King, there can't be like something that's not wrong, that's not quite right. So for this one is like just the way that he spoke about fat people. There was one of his employees who were fat, and just the way that like he spoke about them, and then he himself disguised himself as fat, and then it was just the way that like he went about talking about like fat people that made me very uncomfortable. Being fat myself, and just generally like it was just like a little icky to kind of think of, and I was like, whoa, do you think of fat people like this? Because that's like But yeah, that's that. And then I did see a lot of reviews about people having an issue with him bringing a lot of politics in this book, which like I honestly didn't see as much. Like I don't think like it was as much as people are talking about. They're like, oh my god, Trump was on every page, and I was like, no, he wasn't. But like he did bring it up because he did write this book in 2019, which is when like the elections in the US were happening, and Stephen King is like a very like political person, and he likes to talk about stuff. So yes, Trump and like a bunch of stuff was mentioned a bunch of times. Also, the big bad sort of reminded me of Roger Ailes, so like there was that bit as well. But yeah, that's I didn't really have an issue with that per se. If that is something that you think will put you off, it really wasn't as much. I don't think so. But anyway, that's generally my thoughts. Writing as well, just great. So as I said, I gave this a 8.5 on 10 in terms of writing. So with regards to pacing, this book is about a little more than 400 pages. And I think the first 200 pages I kind of read like fully, no sweat. But there were so many parts of this book where I got a little bored. I was just like, okay, come on now. But it was still going about in like a good sort of way because his writing is so good that you are still compelled to read. But the pacing was still kind of like all over the place in this, like where it was like, ooh, okay, interesting, and then like just went, and then oh, okay, interesting, and then okay. So like yeah, I give this like a 6.5 in terms of pacing. My last criteria is suspense, and I don't think that I was very surprised by this book. I don't think that there were too many like shockers or things where I was just like, oh my god, what's gonna happen next? Of course, there was the part in the middle where like the book absolutely pivoted to something else that I was surprised by. But like, I mean, after that or before that, I didn't really like see too many like, oh my god, I didn't see this coming. Or even if I didn't see something coming, I wasn't like surprised by it or like, oh my god, I was waiting for this to happen or something like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, in terms of suspense, I would give this maybe like a 5 on 10. So that's it. If I take all of my marks that I have given to each criteria and divide by 5, which is the number of criteria, I get a total of 6.9. Nice. Seriously though, should you read this book? If you are a fan of Stephen King, I would say read this book because I've seen a lot of his fans actually really like it. There were some call outs to some of the things that he has written in the past as well in the book, which I personally didn't get because it was a lot of his horror books, which I don't read, so but yeah, people like that. And in general, this was sort of like a middle of the road sort of book for me. I didn't hate myself reading this, but I didn't like get a lot from it either. I still did like this book though, so it wasn't like bad. You know what I mean? It was a middle of the road book for me. So yeah, that's what I have to say. Did you read this book? Do you want to read this book? Do you have thoughts on this book? Please do let me know down in the comments. And if you have reached till here, give me like a nice sun emoji or like a summary emoji or something like that. And comment and subscribe and all of that good stuff. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!